Hello, can you hear me all right? If I just stand here, is this okay? I'm usually like a huge pacer. I like to pace back and forth when I do presentations. But today I will stand here because I don't have a clicker. So this will be my clicker right here. So my name is Ben Harper, or Benjamin Harper, whatever you want to call me is fine. I work for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and I work for a program called Watch Your Back. So BAC obviously stands for Blood Alcohol Concentration. So our program focuses on anything to do with drug and alcohol education. Our program is funded through TxDOT, and so Texas Department of Transportation gives us funds every year to come out and provide this education for free. There are 5 of us on our team that do this, so we travel around the whole state and do this presentation. Fortunately, I just live in Amarillo, so this is a short little drive for me today, which is nice. Last week I was all over Houston and up into East Texas and then back again, and the week before that, just kind of El Paso. Just kind of go all over to provide this education. A little bit about my background. So I worked for FedEx for a lot of years, FedEx Express, delivering packages. My sister works for Texas A&M AgriLife for the passenger safety program. And so I would volunteer to help them a lot. So I am a child passenger safety technician. So I did car seat installs and things for a while. And then when this program opened up, they asked me if I wanted to be involved in it. And I was like, sure, that'd be great. And I didn't know a lick about drugs and alcohol or anything like that. It's not something I really got into through college or anything like that. And so it's been a huge learning experience and a lot of research and a lot of kind of figuring out how things work in this world. And it's been a great experience for me. So that's kind of my background on that. Yeah, let me grab my clicker here. Please stand by. All right. Cool. Uh-huh. Yay, now I can pace. All right. I have ADHD, so the pacing is the only way I can concentrate. Sometimes you'll see me up here doodling. No, that's a joke. I don't doodle when I give presentations, but I do doodle a lot sitting in presentations. So that's just a little quick background about me. So I do not come from this world. So it was a lot of time and energy that I put into this, into researching this stuff, and it changes so often. And so I was up till midnight last night putting together a presentation tailored to fit you guys and to fit Lubbock in this area here. One of the other things we do in this program is we'll show up to your town a couple days before, maybe a day before. Today I just showed up this morning, and I've been here a lot. So one thing we do is we go to different vape stores, smoke shops, gas stations, and we just kind of have a conversation with the person that's working and kind of see what's popular, what they're selling the most in this area. What are people coming in to buy? Why are they buying it? It'll surprise you as to how knowledgeable a lot of these people that work in these places are about the things that they sell. And so I'll say this from the very beginning. One thing I always say is if you want to know 7 years before the FDA puts out thank you, on a drug or something, go to your vape shops, go to your smoke shops, ask these questions. Be like, what are you selling that's popular? What do you sell the most? Some of those things we're going to go over today as well. All right. You saw this work earlier, right? Okay, I just want to make sure. So one thing we're seeing, schools facing a big challenge in curbing substance abuse. So from 2019 to 2023, the number of students facing the following substance use increased. So marijuana use was up 72% in schools around Texas, and vaping, smoking was up 83% in those years. And so what can you do about it? Well, you're here doing it today. You're educating yourself. You can take this education to your staff as well. It is also being recorded as well so that you guys could have a recording of this that you can show later. So since we are publicly grant funded, you feel free to take pictures. None of the stuff that we're showing is hidden, or it can all be used any way you want to use it. Just if it's got our name on it, just make sure it's used in a good way, please. Let's start by talking about alcohol trends. So this will be kind of quick. One thing I want to talk about in alcohol trends, or kind of all this, I'm not going to read all this, but some of the biggest things I want to point out are cannabis-infused drinks. So we're seeing a lot of cannabis-infused seltzers and drinks out there. So a lot of people are going from alcohol to THC-infused drinks. I don't want to call anyone out, but one of the most popular ones is by a country singer who smokes a lot of weed. If you guys know who I'm talking about. We're seeing a lot of poly drug use out there. So multiple substances that are being used together, whether that's things like energy drinks, homemade high-strength brews that are mixed with alcohol, coffee, things like that. Hard seltzers and alcopops are real popular right now. So alcopops are like your fruity flavored type alcohol. So it's made to mask the taste of alcohol with different kinds of flavors. And then the thing we're starting to really see pick up right now are smart private house parties. So kids that are being involved in these house parties and parents that aren't really doing the proper checks they need to do to make sure that these kids are being responsible at these parties. Let's talk about TikTok and social media. That's where all these trends start, right? Have you guys ever seen this guy on TikTok or on social media or anything? So he's real popular. So he tests a bunch of different types of drinks, alcoholic drinks and flavors and things like that. He'll put them together. He'll test them. Have you heard of Blackout Rage Gallon, Borg? So this is one thing we've been talking about for about 2 years now. We've been talking about Borgs. We see them at small private house parties all the time. We see them at school parties, things like that. Basically what a Borg is, and I'll let him kind of explain it a little bit more, but I'll give you a basic understanding. It's a 1 gallon container that's usually filled with water and a fifth of some kind of alcohol and then flavoring put into it. And then you take that jug and you nickname it. So it's real popular amongst teens these days to have these. And last night I was putting this together and I'm sitting there thinking, man, I've been talking about this for 2 years now and I haven't seen it on the news. I haven't seen it in kind of areas. So usually what that means is it's probably not as popular as I thought it was and I should start talking about something else. But then a couple weeks ago, I started seeing it in the news and I started seeing it on TV shows. So I have some clips here to show that. So this first one I'm going to show you is just a clip from TikTok. So this is the guy introducing what a Borg is. There's one video. This next one is a news station out of Chicago. So this was just this past St. Patrick's Day. So this is them talking about the dangers of Borgs and what they were seeing there in Chicago. So the past 10 years, so you heard him talk a little bit about overconsumption and alcohol poisoning. So the past 10 years, there's been a steady incline of alcohol poisoning cases in Texas. And this past year, that has almost doubled. That incline has almost doubled. And it's hard to really give exact figures because a lot of it's like polysubstance use. So maybe it's alcohol mixed with marijuana that caused the overdose or something like that. But we are starting to see more and more and more cases of alcohol poisoning. And it's because of things like this. And like they said in the news article, kids are under the impression that it's fine to do that because you're mixing it with water and electrolytes and other things, but you're still putting that fifth of vodka in there, right? And that's, like it said, it's equivalent to 16 or 17 standard drink units of alcohol. And so these kids will go and they'll drink that whole gallon and then all of a sudden they'll start experiencing these issues with alcohol poisoning and things. And in a lot of cases with alcohol poisoning, a lot of kids are underage and so they're worried that they're gonna get in trouble. Have you guys heard of the 911 Lifeline Law or the Starkey Law? We kind of talk about that a lot, especially with kids that are underage, under 21 years old. So just real briefly, just because I don't, if I start talking, I'm not going to get through my presentation. So just real briefly, what the 911 Lifeline Law is, it basically states that if any kids are at a party and they're minors and they're consuming alcohol and someone starts showing signs of alcohol poisoning, the person that calls 911, if they stay with the person until help arrives, that gives the officer discretion whether or not they want to charge that person with a minor in possession or minor in consumption charge. And it gives that person the opportunity to save somebody's life, basically. And Daniel Starkey, the reason they call it the Starkey Law is because Daniel Starkey was one kid who his friends put him in the car. He was showing signs of alcohol poisoning. Halfway to the hospital, they all turned around because they're like, we don't want to get in trouble. Took him upstairs, put him in his bed, and he died there that night. And so his parents really pushed to pass this law called the 911 Lifeline Law. This next one is from, have you guys heard of a show called Boston Blue? This is from a really popular TV show called Boston Blue, which I think is on CBS maybe. All right. So what's happening? Is this is starting to become really popular now. And usually when the news starts talking about it and you start seeing it on TV and you start seeing it all over the place, it becomes less and less popular because now the kids know that everybody knows about it. So they're going to find something else that they're going to do. But this will probably be something that we don't talk about for too much longer before something else comes out on the alcohol side of things that's more popular that we'll start talking about. So that's kind of how things work in the drug and alcohol trending world. Purple Drink. I don't know if you guys remember Purple Drink or Legal Lean or Syrup from the 90s. Was real popular. This is making a comeback. Actually, we're starting to see this a lot. A couple things I want to point out on this slide. You have this here, it's called the double cupping method. So if you're at a party and you're walking around with 2 cups that are stacked, you're usually telling someone that you're selling Purple Drink or you're into Purple Drink. And then this is kind of how it would be made on a level that someone made it at home. Usually Arizona iced tea, some kind of Robo-Cough or Robitussin cough syrup mixed with Skittles, and then put together with Sprite into a container. And that's what people are usually using to get drunk off of. It is also sold in pre-made containers. So this is called Sippin' Syrup. It says euphoric thoughts, extended relaxation, and experience calmness. So this is one that we found in a vape store that they were actually selling just over the counter in a pre-made container. Another one that was brought to our attention recently outside of Houston is smoking alcohol. So this is where the user will combine dry ice and their favorite alcoholic drink, and then they'll breathe in the fumes that come off of the dry ice to get drunk. And it does work because alcohol, as we know, fumes up, and when you add dry ice, then you can breathe in the fumes of it and get drunk off of it. Several issues with this. One issue is, it's probably not good to breathe in carbon dioxide, right, from the byproduct of dry ice. The second issue is you don't know how much you've had to consume. So the user can't keep track of how much they had to consume. So you can easily become you can easily get alcohol poisoning in this method. And then the third issue is it's just stupid. Just don't, just don't do it. But this is something that we're starting to see more and more and hear more and more about. Let's talk about trends in marijuana that we're seeing. So this is kind of one of our longer subjects here because there's so much to talk about trends in marijuana and THC. We'll start real basic. How much do we know about marijuana? Well, most of us know what it looks like. We know what it smells like, and we know that it's illegal in Texas. Those are basically the 3 basic things that we know about marijuana. I think we can all agree on that. When we talk about cannabis, you have 3 different types of cannabis. You have cannabis sativa, so there's 3 strains, cannabis indica, and then you have cannabis ruderalis, which is kind of a hybrid of the 2 put together. In this instance, we're gonna just focus on cannabis sativa mostly because under cannabis sativa, you have hemp and then you have marijuana. So hemp is classified as 0.2 to 0.3% THC. So it usually doesn't contain less than more than 0.3% THC. The hemp plant is taller than the marijuana plant, so it's 4 meters versus 2 meters. And the hemp plant is used as a wide range of purposes, also known as industrial hemp, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then you have the marijuana plant. So with marijuana, you have higher amounts of THC. So we'll go over that here in a second as well. And then it's a shorter plant. And then it's typically used for recreational and medical use. Let's look at the potency evolution of marijuana over the years. So prior to the 1990s, THC content was less than 2% in marijuana. So any marijuana that you would find on the streets or anywhere, it was usually less than 2%. Compared that to today, we're seeing about a 212% rise in THC in these products. And that's due to how they breed the plant. They can add more THC. They can, plant breeding and all that is way above my head. So I don't, I don't know how they do it, but I know that there is a way where they can do that. And then you have products that are more concentrated that are also called dabs, which we'll talk about as well, that can range from 60 to 90% THC in those products. And so that kind of gives you an idea of the evolution of potency. So why are we seeing all this? Why all of a sudden are we seeing an explosion of vape stores all over Texas? Why are we seeing Delta 9, Delta 8 products everywhere? Well, it's because of the introduction of the Texas House Bill 1325, which was passed in 2019. So basically, this legalized the cultivation and hemp process of growing hemp in Texas. So it took it from a Schedule I drug in Texas down to making it legal to grow hemp. And the idea behind it was to use hemp as an alternative resource to plastics and rubber and things like that, because it's biodegradable. The law is written that hemp is defined as cannabis containing no more than 0.3% Delta 9 THC by weight. Anything above that threshold is classified as marijuana and remains illegal in Texas. The bill permitted the manufacture and sale of things like CBD or cannabidiol, which we'll talk a little bit about, not much. And as long as they meet that 0.3% threshold, it is legal to purchase and consume in Texas. Then we had the Cobra effect. So what the Cobra effect is, in India, back in the 1800s, they had a real issue with the cobra population, and it was killing a lot of people, killing kids and things like that. And so the intention was to reduce the cobra population. Well, how are we going to do that? The action was to have a bounty for dead cobras. And then the effect of that was people started farming cobras, right? So they would raise cobras, farm them, take them in, and then get money for the cobra. And so that is exactly what happened with the hemp bill, right? So the intention of the hemp bill was to remove it from the Schedule I CSA, to treat it like any other agricultural commodity, so you can have all of these different products and uses of it. The action was to have hemp packaging, hemp fibers, building materials made out of hemp, just all these different things that would keep from filling up the landfills and make things more biodegradable. And the effect was, well, you said you couldn't have Delta 9 THC, but you didn't say you couldn't have these Delta products, or these Delta products, or these Delta products, or these Delta products, or even these Delta products. So everything that you see highlighted here are the biggest things we see around Texas. So these are all sorts of different products that have been crossbred and made to get around this loophole of Delta 9 being illegal. Some of the ones we're going to talk about today is Delta 8 THC, THCA. Those are about the two biggest things that we're going to talk about. Delta 8 versus Delta 9. What's the difference? Well, Delta 8 is hemp derived, so it's derived from the hemp plant. It gives you a milder high because it has less THC content. That's the one you'll see mostly sold in gas stations, vape shops, and places like that. and it's unregulated through the FDA, obviously. So it can be mislabeled a lot. So you might think you're getting a Delta 8 product that's actually a Delta 9 product, and all of a sudden you're walking out of a store with a product you think is legal that's actually illegal. And that has a whole host of other issues, especially when it comes to law enforcement. Delta 9 found in marijuana, stronger psychoactive effect, illegal in Texas recreationally, and it has addiction and mental health risks that go along with long-term use of marijuana. States that have outlawed Delta 8, there you go. Texas is not one of those states. Now, Texas has outlawed the use of Delta 8. So as of September of last year, they've outlawed the use of Delta 8 in vape products. So vape stores are no longer supposed to sell legally Delta 8 vape products. Do they still do it? Sure, because there's too many to regulate to make sure they're not doing it. But the law states that it can still be in a consumable product. So it can still be in a candy form or an edible form. CBD, we know about cannabidiol, CBD, we'll call it CBD. I get all mixed up with all the different. So CBD does have some health benefits to it. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of studies about it, but some of the studies do show some health benefits to using CBD. But there are side effects that go along with that as well. And some of those side effects could be psychoactive or they could be physical side effects. It comes in different forms: oils, extracts, capsules, patches, vapes, edibles, topicals. And then CBD is currently available as an unregulated supplement in the state of Texas. Let's talk about the MCUP, the Medical Cannabis Use Program in Texas. As long as it's prescribed by a board physician, and they've recently changed the law to say, the law used to say percentage, but now it says weight versus percentage. And there's a whole reason behind that I won't get into, that you guys can research if you want, because it's a long rabbit hole to get down into. But they recently changed the law to add it per weight. And so in the medical use program, you can have THC up to 10 milligrams per dose, and it's limited to 1 gram of THC per package. So that's how the medical use program works in Texas. It has been expanded, so it covers things like autism, so severe cases of autism. It covers any kind of neurodegenerative disease, so vascular dementia, serious cases of Alzheimer's. It also covers advanced stages of cancer. So if you have advanced stages of cancer, you can get prescribed medical use THC in Texas. And then it's been expanded this last year to cover debilitating diseases that are known to be debilitating for veterans, so like PTSD, traumatic brain injury, things like that. And then it also covers, there was a new one they added, Crohn's disease was another one, and other conditions like Crohn's disease that can be very debilitating, especially later on into the disease process. Let's talk about some of the product and package requirements. So this is an example of a state, let's just say Oregon, that has legalized recreational use of marijuana. So they have lots of regulations. So states like Oregon, Washington, Colorado, California that have legalized recreational use of this are heavily regulated. Every seed, everything is tracked by the government, by the state government, to know where it's at and what they're producing. Some of the regulations you'll see are child-proof containers, opaque packaging, keep away from children warnings, THC warnings, and then you have standard dose restrictions in edibles. So 2.5 to 10 milligrams THC per serving, so no more than 10 milligrams of THC per servings. And then they can't advertise in shapes, cartoons, characters, so anything that would be attractive to youth. And then we come to states like our great state of Texas here. So products and package requirements in Texas, there really aren't very many regulations on this in Texas. And so they don't have regulations on childproof containers. So we don't see a lot of childproof containers. We don't see hardly any keep away from children warnings. Usually the THC warnings are small and indiscernible. So these are examples of THC warnings on these packages. There's no dose restrictions. So we found it to where it contains up to hundreds of milligrams of THC per serving in some of these products. And you'll see it a lot in shapes, cartoons, characters that make it attractive to youth. So candies and things like that. This is a picture from a vape store that has just different forms of Delta 8 and Delta 9 products in snack forms. Now, is Lay's going around saying, you know, let's make Doritos that have THC in them? No, they're not. But what's happening is a lot of these products are made in countries that don't have branding laws, and then they're shipped to the US to be sold in these vape stores and stuff. THC infused seltzer, we talked a little bit about that in the beginning. So there's a thing called crossfading that we see happens a lot, where you can mix THC infused seltzer with other drinks. Applebee's just introduced a new drink. So I was eating an Applebee's in Midland not too long ago. And there's actually like a menu on their drink menu. They advertise a THC infused drink that you can get at Applebee's now in Texas. If you think about kind of what it does when you mix alcohol and cannabis, have you heard the saying like liquor before beer, you're in the clear, beer before liquor, never sicker? I think that's how it goes. Well, if you think about that on the THC side, you have booze before weed gets you higher indeed. So if you consume booze and then consume THC, you're going to get higher off of that THC product. And then you have weed before drink, you had more than you think. So if you consume THC and then consume drink, the THC will delay the effects of alcohol until later. And, you know, so a lot of people will drink THC infused alcohol at these restaurants and things, real popular in Austin right now. And then on their way home is when the alcohol hits. And then all of a sudden they're driving drunk. And so that's kind of how it works when you mix these things. There's a lot of different other effects that we could talk about, but then I would be here for 10 hours, and I'm sure you don't want to sit here for 10 hours and talk about it. Type 3, there's 3 main types of crossfading businesses that we see in Texas. You have the manufacturers who produce the THC seltzers, and then they ship to locations across Texas. And then it can be manufactured in other states and then shipped to Texas as well. You have on-premises places, so like bars and restaurants. Some of these places will have THC dispensaries inside the bars or restaurants. And then you'll have like THC-infused foods as well. So there's actually a restaurant in Austin, I can't remember the name of it, but it's actually like a buffet, and every food they have on the buffet is THC-infused food, which is insane to me. That's just wild. Don't ask me how I know about that. No, I'm just kidding. It's part of my community scans. All right, some states that have passed regulation on on-site cannabis consumption. So you have Alaska that says they may sell food or beverages not containing marijuana and alcohol together. You have Maryland, who may not, in that state, you may not allow the consumption of alcohol in an establishment that also sells THC. You have, let's talk about New Mexico. Alcohol is prohibited in cannabis consumption areas. So areas where somebody's consuming cannabis, you also cannot have alcohol with you. Texas does have a regulation. The only regulation they have on crossfading is where you cannot combine alcohol and THC seltzer together, but you can serve them together. Hence the name crossfading, or the other name for it is zebra striping. So you'll see oftentimes at the bar where they'll take a drink of alcohol and then a drink of THC seltzer and then a drink of alcohol and go back and forth to get that polysubstance use effect. When it comes to driving while intoxicated, polysubstance use, so alcohol and marijuana is one of the biggest things law enforcement's seeing with people they pull over for DUIs or DWIs. When compared to alcohol alone, there's a 16, or alcohol impaired driving alone, there's a 16 times increased crash risk. When you combine the two, it raises it up to about 25 times crash risk there. And then, of course, you have the normal things where like the inability to focus on more than one task. It really delays your reaction time like crazy. So a lot of things we see are cars that go through intersections, like they'll drive right through a red light at a normal speed, a highway speed or whatever, and then their brain will tell them, oh, we need to stop at that red light. But by then it's too late, right? So a lot of the crashes you see are at intersections or rear end collisions because your reaction time is almost delayed by half when you combine those two products. Let's talk a little bit about dabs or oils and concentrates. We'll skip this video for now. So oils and concentrates can appear as an oil, wax, paste, honey-like liquid. So it could be really thick. So it can be put into a vape pen. So I have an actual, is there any law enforcement in here? Okay, good. I have an actual THC product, vape pen containing THC here, which I have a special letter that I carry around that allows me to do this for educational purposes. So you'll be able to see what the liquid looks like in a vape pen. It's really, really, really thick stuff. So it could be put into an e-cigarette or a cartridge. It can come in colorful packaging or flavors, and it's easy to conceal. So a lot of times you'll see it put into these little rubberized containers, and it just looks like chapstick at this point, and then someone will take a toothpick and dab it into there and then suck on the toothpick, and that's how they get high. If you remember, we talked about the concentration of this in the beginning. So with these products, it can contain up to like 212% THC in this really highly concentrated form. So it doesn't take much to get high on. I'm going backwards. Here's kind of an example, if you couldn't see that, of what those containers look like. This is pre-made containers, and then this is those rubberized containers. This is what it looks like in a vape pen. Some of the outcomes, hazy outcomes we're seeing in Texas because of the exploitation of the loophole and the way regulations are in Texas and the way laws are written. There's no oversight. It says no age restrictions. That's not necessarily true because Texas just passed a law that you have to be 21 years old to purchase consumable hemp products in the state of Texas. So I need to update that because this is out of date a little bit. And then as I talked about in the beginning, sometimes you'll see a customer charged with felonies for possession because they think they're getting a product that's legal in Texas, but actually they're not. They're getting a product that might have Delta 9 instead of Delta 8 in it. And then you have lack of clarity. So there's 254 counties in Texas, and every county kind of has their own way that they do laws and their own DAs that want to pursue charges and don't want to pursue charges. And so there's a lot of lack of clarity there with that. I'm going to look at my notes here real quick because there's something I wanted to bring up. So in the state of Texas, we have 1,200 McDonald's. So there's 1,200 McDonald's in the state of Texas, and there's over 8,000 vape stores in the state of Texas. So that kind of gives you an example of how many different types of places sell these products. The Department of State Health Services is who's in charge of regulating vape stores, but there are so many vape stores that it says here, let me just read it. Department of State Health Services has enough employees to visit each establishment once every 5 years. So yes, they're getting away with selling products that are illegal in Texas, and it's because there's just too much to regulate for the Department of State Health Services. So they rely on local law enforcement to have grants. They rely on student crime stoppers, things like that, to really focus on these vape stores. And even then, there's still too many to regulate. So we're still seeing products that have been illegal for a long time that are still being sold. Drug references, we'll talk a little bit about drug references. So if you look here, Farm to Market Road 710, there actually is a Farm to Market Road 710. I don't remember where it's at, but you can look it up if you want. And if you turn that upside down, what does that spell? Oil. So that would be like your dabs, your oil, your wax, your THC wax, things like that. And so a lot of these products are being used, and I usually have like t-shirts and everything that I can show off. Since this is a shorter presentation, I didn't bring any of that with me, that are things, I think I have pictures of some stuff maybe. Yeah, here we go. So you have like, for example, where's Molly? So Molly represents MDMA or ecstasy. You have brands that are specific to the drug trend culture. So you have Seedless, DGK, you have Lifted Research Group, which is this one here and this one. You have Truck Fit. A lot of these started off in the 90s as like skateboard companies, and then they transitioned into the drug trend culture. So a lot of the times what we're seeing in schools, especially is kids wearing these things saying, hey, I'm selling, or I'm buying if you're selling. Now, that's not always the case. My boss is, how do I say this nicely? She's in her 70s, so I'll go with that. And she always likes to tell the story of buying her son socks that has like marijuana leaves printed on them. And then her son is always like, wow, you're the coolest mom ever. This is awesome. But she had no idea what it was. So a lot of the times it might just be a harmless thing that, because you can buy this stuff anywhere. You know, Lifted Research is real popular at Dillard's, DGK, Seedless, Truck Fit, you can find at Zoomies and PacSun and places like that. But a lot of the times it's also people who know what they're wearing. What about Backwoods? Have you heard of Backwoods? This is a real popular brand I see everywhere. They like to advertise with The Simpsons for some reason. Man, they love The Simpsons. And here's a 12-year-old Bart Simpson smoking a joint and flicking the middle finger there on the... Some things I've seen in schools. So this was taken into school outside Austin. So we're back to the purple drink now with the double cupping method there, right? So this is faded is another name for that. So like if you want to get faded, that's also a polysubstance use term as well. So for alcohol, marijuana. Here's a backpack I saw on Amazon that I thought was pretty funny. So this is, there's your purple drink and your codeine cough syrup or whatever you want to call it. And then if you look here, you can see like that shark bite logo, right? Do you guys see that a lot at all? I got it here on the backpack, on the Spray Grounds backpack too. So this is something that's really over the last couple of years become kind of a drug trend reference as well, is that shark bite logo. Let's look at some of the reviews of this backpack, because this is great. Big enough for a fourth grader. All right. Let's give a fourth grader a backpack with some cartoon character selling drugs out there. What about this one? My son is in middle school, and of course he couldn't have just a regular backpack. He loves it. What about this one? What do you see when you see this backpack? Maybe that THC wax, MDMA, a little bit of acid, right? That melting smiley face. The front pocket is smaller than expected. Dang, that's too bad. Also, I'm not sure if it'll last a full school year since the bottom is not reinforced. However, the pattern is 100% what my kiddo wanted. The colors are great and the size is right for a second grader. So this parent bought this for their second grader, complaining about the size of the pocket, not knowing the drug trend reference that her second grader is now going to be carrying to school. Cookies is a real big one that we see a lot. We see this advertised a lot on vape stores and things. So cookies literally is the nickname for what's left over in bong, the residue that's left over from marijuana. That's the nickname for cookies. A real popular clothing brand. Huff, we talked about those socks earlier that my boss bought her son. You can see these for sale at Dillard's. They're actually they're like, I think like $40 a pair or something. They're a high brand kind of sock. Spray Ground backpacks. Why do you think these are so popular? They're very expensive, by the way. This thing was like $190, which is insane. It's like and we see kids wearing them all over. Who's buying their kids $190 backpacks? That's crazy. So the reason these are so popular, it's, a lot of it's because it's just a popular brand and kids want to be popular. But a big reason is they have hidden stash pockets on them. Okay, so if you look to the side here, you can actually unzip it. There's a hidden zipper here. And if you reach inside, there's a little tag. I think I have a picture of it here that says, "Congratulations, you found the infamous stash pocket. Now don't tell anybody." So you're buying this backpack for your kid. They find this stash pocket, and then it tells them that it's an actual stash pocket they can hide stuff in. It's crazy. And then there's another one kind of on the bottom as well. There. These are also charcoal lined. So with them being charcoal lined, you could put stinky things in. And by stinky, I don't mean gym socks, although that would be a good thing to put in there. But like things like marijuana, and then the human nose can't smell it. This is another example of a charcoal lined backpack as well. And this one, I think, is this the one? I have another one at the house that, no, it's not. So the other one at the house is actually, there's a tag that says like, "'cause everything else stinks." You can put your stinky stuff in here. Now, a drug dog can still hit on these bags, obviously, because their smell receptors are like 20,000 times greater than ours, even though my dogs are dumb. Anyways, no bad idea. This is a Diamond brand. These are hats that are stash hats. So they have like little stash pockets in them. I had a couple of these, but we've been kind of spreading out our stuff amongst other employees, and I think somebody else has my stash hats now. But there's literally, if you look where the brand is, right behind the brand, there's either a zipper or a Velcro pocket behind the sweatband. So you have to move the sweatband, and then you can open a hidden stash pocket there. There's kind of an example of what it looks like. We won't talk too much about vaping and e-cigs. I think we're all pretty familiar with vaping and e-cigarettes at this point. Here's the history of it. If you want to take a picture, you can. I'm not going to read this whole slide, I promise. Effects of flavors. So obviously, it's more than just nicotine that affects your lungs. There's also different flavors. So one of the biggest effects we have is a condition called bronchiolitis obliterans, aka popcorn lung, if you've heard of that. That's from a butter flavoring that they put into vape pens that can cause obstructions in the lungs. And usually that's permanent damage. I won't say usually, I'd say 99% of the time that's permanent damage that happens. So the only way to fix that is through a lung transplant. Why flavors? Well, because they want to advertise to kids. Simple as that. You start them younger, you'll have lifelong customers, blah, blah, blah. 15,500 different types of flavors out there. That's a lot of different flavors. That's crazy. Yep. Lung, we talked about that. EVALI is a condition that they found recently. E-cigarette vaping associated lung injury is what EVALI stands for. So that's specific to that popcorn lung injury that we talked about, or bronchiolitis obliterans. There's some stuff on EVALI. Reason for vaping amongst adolescents. Well, the biggest things we see is to relax or relieve tension, because you know teenagers are under so much stress nowadays, it's insane. A lot of it's to experiment what it's like. That's not as much, we don't see that as much as we used to. And because they're bored and there's nothing else to do, so let's go hit a vape pen. And then another one is because it tastes good, just great flavors. Here's a real popular one called a Geek Bar. I have one up here. I don't have a Geek Bar, but I have an Elf Bar, which is basically the same thing. So if you look at this, this is 15,000 puffs in this one vape pen. So these are made to be disposable. So once you use them, you just trash them. And this is why landfills are catching on fire all over the place, and garbage trucks. Anyways, I won't go into that. So one Geek Bar contains 800 milligrams of nicotine. One cigarette contains 1 milligram of nicotine. So if you do the math, that's about 40 packs of cigarettes in one Geek Bar. And we're seeing kids go through these in a week, 2 weeks. And this is why a lot of these conditions, so with our grandparents or great-grandparents that would smoke traditional cigarettes, by the time they got into their 80s and 90s, they had COPD, lung disease, brain disease, heart disease, things like that. We're starting to see this in more and more cases of 20s, those in their 20s, mid-20s, 30s years old getting COPD. So there's like, I was in Austin not too long ago, and there's like people walking down 6th Street, 20 years old with oxygen tanks behind them. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is insane. Still vaping, yeah. They probably had like vape juice in their oxygen tank. I'm just kidding. And by the way, $14 for this vape pen. So when we talk about pricing our kids into the drug market, this is what we're talking about. Some of the new laws that have passed, ban covers THC, CBD8, Delta-8, and youth appealing packaging. That all has to do with vape pens, so we talked about that a little bit. There's some of the legalities of it. And then, of course, retailers are facing inventory losses and things like that due to that. So we're going to start seeing a lot of these vape stores shutting down because of it. Let's briefly talk about fentanyl. Have you guys heard of nitazines or xylazine? So nitazines and xylazines are kind of on the same level of fentanyl. They're opioids that are illegally manufactured. Xylazine is a tranquilizer, an animal tranquilizer that a large animal vet would use to put down a cow or a horse or something like that. It's being abused in really big levels right now all over Texas. It's also called tranq, and then it can produce what's called tranq wounds. You ever seen anyone with tranq wounds? So they're basically like open wounds that form from using products like xylazine in the skin. So literally people are walking around looking like zombies because they're kind of high on this stuff, and then they have rotting flesh all over. It's really nasty stuff, man. It's becoming more and more popular. We're gonna skip this video because I'm cutting it close here. So what are nitazines? Nitazines are powerful synthetic opioids that were produced in the 1950s but were never approved for medical use. So a lot of these drug cartels said, oh man, we could start selling this stuff. People are getting used to fentanyl, right? It's becoming used so much that fentanyl is not as popular as it used to. I don't know how to say that correctly. It's not being used as much because people are becoming more and more used to it. And so they have to use more and more fentanyl. So these drug cartels will come out with new drugs like nitazines that can be up to 10 to 40 times stronger than fentanyl in some cases, and 100 times stronger than morphine. And it's made in counterfeit pills, nasal sprays, and mixed with other different street drugs. Narcan does work, but oftentimes multiple doses are needed. I've seen in some cases where 10 doses were needed to bring someone back from nitazines. And then there's a that golden hour of time is a lot less. So it's like from the time someone starts showing overdose signs to the use of Narcan is like 10 minutes. You have like 10 minutes to get it to them to reverse that. Xylazine, we talked about that, can lead to skin ulcers, tissue damage. Xylazine is not an opioid, so it is a tranquilizer. So Narcan may not reverse it, but it's still good to give it if someone's suspected of going into an overdose from xylazine. Which of these pills do you think is counterfeit? And which one do you think is real? The bottom one's what? Counterfeit? How do you know that? No, I'm just kidding. So you're right, the bottom one is counterfeit. And if we had any, do we have any, what's the medicine people called? Pharmacists in here? So a pharmacist could look at this and tell right away that the bottom's counterfeit. And the reason it looks that way is because a lot of these drug cartels, so this is actual pictures from the FDA that they raided a house outside Houston, I think. So a lot of these drug cartels are using pill press machines that are older. And so if you look at this picture here, this is an older version of a oxycodone pill or OxyContin pill. I think that's OxyContin. And then this is a newer version of it. And so they're using pill press machines that are 30, 40 times or 40 years older than what's currently being used. And that's kind of a quick way to look at a pill and know. Now, if it was just the one pill in your hand, are you really gonna know if it's authentic or counterfeit? No, it's almost impossible to tell. And that's why we had that huge issue with kids and teens overdosing on fentanyl so much. Hayes CSID, so this is, Hayes is outside Austin. So it's a school, if you read this letter, this morning the Hayes County Sheriff's Department announced what we had feared, that the death of one of our 15-year-old students in April is suspected to be from an accidental fentanyl overdose. His death is the 6th student we have lost to fentanyl since last summer. So that school was really hit hard with fentanyl that year. So this is 6 active high school students, not a couple students that maybe graduated 3 years ago, 4 years ago. These are active high school students that experience this. Narcan, we all know about Narcan, used to reverse opioid overdose. We are seeing a lot less opioid overdoses when it comes to fentanyl. And I don't think it's because, I don't know this for sure, so don't quote me on this, but I don't think it's because people are using it less. I think it's because there's more and more resources to get free Narcan out there. So I don't know if you've ever seen, this is in Deep Ellum. This is one of the first free Narcan vending machines I saw. This is Deep Ellum in Dallas. And then sometimes I'll go to like a bunch of other places and they'll have free Narcan vending machines. So I think the reason we're seeing less and less overdose cases is because you're starting to see the increase of Narcan being available for free to people on the streets. So I think that's important to point out. Now the last section we'll talk about, which is also my favorite, this is what I love to do, are these community scans. This is a vape store in Dumas, so north of Amarillo. You can see some of the brands we talked about, Backwoods, Cookies, right there. Raw is another popular brand. Zigzag's on there. Some of the things you'll see sold in these and advertised in big letters across the windows is Kratom is one of those. Kratom is a plant that is a natural plant from Southeast Asia that has opioid-like symptoms signs when you use it. Some of the important warnings of Kratom, misuse can very easily lead to an overdose, so it could be even just twice the recommended amount can lead to an overdose. Narcan does not work to reduce Kratom overdose, and obviously, like we talked about, it can act like an opioid in the body. Reason for popularity, I need to update this too. So this year it changed to you have to be 21 or older to purchase Kratom in Texas. So it used to be 18. It's commonly used as a replacement for opioids, and then it's available in stores due to lack of regulation. This is what it looks like in different forms. This is a powder form, comes in pill forms, liquid forms, all sorts of different forms. You can even find it in vape pens and things like that. Kradex, this is a thing I found. So this was like actually sold all together in a vape store. I think it was a year ago. And it's basically Robocough, a Kratom pill, and vodka. You mix those things together and it gives you a Vicodin Percocet fill for about 5 hours. It's called Kradex. 7-hydroxymetriogenine. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one. It's also called 7-OH or Opia. I have some pills here. So basically what 7-hydroxymetriogenine is, it's the chemical compound found in Kratom that produces the opioid-like effect. And they found a way to extract it from the plant and concentrate it down into a pill form. So if you took 2 of these pills, there's 4 in this package, that gives you about the same effect as fentanyl does. And it's legal, sold over the counter for $37 right there. I found that in Paducah, Texas. Anybody know where Paducah is? Small town. Even small towns have access to this stuff. This is also sold in vape pens and liquids and powders and all sorts of stuff. THCA, tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, is one of those things that was banned for sale, not for possession. Don't turn me in, I can still possess this legally. But it was banned for sale in Texas. Do people still sell it? Of course, because who's regulating, right? So we see it all the time still. So THCA, what it is in this form, so this is a pre-roll here. So it's hemp mixed with a product called tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. It's not the acid that you would think like MDMA acid or anything like that. What it is THC that's been concentrated down into a crystal form. And then whenever it's smoked, it goes through a process called decarboxylation and it turns it into full strength THC. So in this form, there's 0% THC, legal to possess, but once you smoke it, it turns it into full strength Delta-9 THC. And so this has been banned for sale, but not possession in Texas. Some important warnings about that. Obviously, it may become intoxicating once it's burned. It's marketed as legal highs, and teens may not realize that it can cause impairment once it's used. Tianeptine, or also known as gas station heroin. This is another one of those kind of like zitazines. The only difference is zitazines are scheduled one through the CSA. Tianeptines can still be sold over the counter. This is also has nicknames as Zaza Red, Zaza White, Tiana. You can also mix this with alcohol to increase the effects of alcohol. So we see it a lot in college towns where kids are buying it to mix into their drinks to make their alcohol stronger. This is what it looks like in the form in a vape store. Phenibut, once again, another one of those real popular drugs like tianeptine that are sold over the counter. Phenibut's a little bit different because in 2023, the FDA ruled it illegal to market as a dietary supplement. So that's how vape stores were marketing tianeptine or Phenibut to get away with selling it. Phenibut, Fen is another name for it. Do you guys remember like Hydroxycut from the 90s? They still sell it, but when they first started selling Hydroxycut, Phenibut was the main ingredient in it that they used to help people lose weight. Narcan does not work on Phenibut, by the way. Feel Free, I don't know if you've seen this product. So Feel Free is kratom and kava mixed together into a liquid form. This is real popular. You'll see this a lot in gas stations. Right at the register, they'll sell it. There's no, even though it does contain kratom, there's still no age restriction to purchase Feel Free in the state of Texas. And that's kind of one of those loopholes they found. And then it acts as basically as a benzodiazepine once you consume it. This is what it looks like sold in the most popular form. We see it a lot. And then it's also sold in like drink cans and things. We're almost done, I promise. Amanita muscaria, the real popular mushroom for microdosing. So you'll see it sold in like edible chocolate forms, and you can break a piece off, microdose it. If you take half of that chocolate bar, you're going to the moon like crazy. It's insane. So it's a strong hallucinogen, basically. And then it's found in edible forms. This is what it looks like in the wild. So if you think about like the fairy tale with the red mushroom with the white polka dots on it, that's an Amanita muscaria. It's sold in mushrooms, vape pens, chocolate forms, like I said. And then it is a toxic mushroom until it is dried, and then the toxins are broken down, and then you can consume it once it's dried. So if you picked it up and ate it in the wild, you're gonna die, basically. And then the last thing I wanna talk about, which I added last night, is galaxy gas. Have you guys seen galaxy gas or heard of galaxy gas? So this is nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is what they use. So this is a container that you would find in a restaurant where you could put heavy whipping cream in it, and then you put a CO2 canister of nitrous oxide on it, and then you hit the trigger and it turns it into whipped cream, basically. So what people are doing is they're taking those nitrous oxide, and they're getting high on it. And it's also called whippets. I don't know if you heard of whippets. That's another name for it. Galaxy Gas is the brand name of nitrous oxide, so it's sold in different flavors, canisters, things like that. And then they're often sold in colorful flavored canisters with names like mango smoothie, vanilla cupcakes. And critics obviously argue the packaging appeals to young users, and that's the reason they do that. There is a video that I put on here to introduce it. We won't watch it, it's like an 8-minute video, but if you just think about the reason a lot of these vape stores are able to get away with selling this type of stuff is because they can say, oh, it's used for the restaurant industry, right? But then the containers they sell it in are obviously like used for drug users and drug abusers and things like that, which is pretty wild. So that is my presentation.